So before we think about how we're twisting, it's always useful to think about why we are twisting. So my teacher Swami Dayananda would say, before you do anything, you should consider, why am I doing it? Or what am I to get out of this? So let's take a pause and pull back to the purpose. Well, we can always talk about the purpose of yoga itself, but let's talk about the purpose of spinal twists from a yogic perspective. Now, they're called spinal twists. So that means that the twist is for your spine. The case can be made, as I make in Supreme Release Yoga, that all asana practice is for your spine. Why? From an anatomical viewpoint, your spine is the center line of your body. It is the axis of the whole body. It is the center line of health, because along the spine, we find all of the internal organs. And from a more subtle viewpoint, the spine is the place as well of the subtle spine, which we can consider the conduit of the spiritual growth process in the subtle body. It is the conduit of Kundalini Shakti. It is the conduit of the Soma nectar. It is along the subtle spine that Ida and Pingala nadis, okay, these channels of prana that are very primary and fundamental, that these Ida Pingala nadis move their way along. And those two nadis, of course, are crisscrossing, interweaving with, relating with the Sushumna nadi, which is aligned with the physical spine, but it is the subtle spine, Sushumna nadi. So the spine is really primary to asana practice. And spinal twists are what? Twisting the spine. Why? Of course, we could talk about the health-giving factors of spinal twists, but also, again, we're thinking about what is the influence on Ida and Pingala nadi. Ida and Pingala are also known as Ha and Ta. And this is why Hatha Yoga, because Hatha Yoga practices, which includes asana and pranayama, these practices are meant to work with, have an influence on, relate with the Ida and Pingala nadis, or Ha and Ta. So from that viewpoint, if we're not working at the level of the nadis, creating space, opening the nadis, increasing prana or life force in the nadis, and so on, then is it really asana? Is it really yoga? Is it really hatha yoga? So I don't necessarily talk about ha and ta or ida pingala every time I talk about asana, but I am talking about it in the light of spinal twists, because the reason for spinal twists in particular, amongst all the categories of asana, has to do with ha and ta. Why? Because when we twist the spine, we're working very directly with the physical and the subtle spine, including ha and ta, or ida pingala. And we are always twisting both sides. And so this has to do with influencing both subtle sides, both ha and ta, and balancing the two sides. Many approaches to yogasana follow what's known as the path of least resistance of the body. And so where people are attempting to twist the rib cage, where that's what the twists are designed to do in order to decompress your spine through the rib cage and open blocked areas physically and at the non-physical subtle realm level, people's bodies bump into tight spots, bump into knots in the spine. And then what happens is the body will follow the path of least resistance. And what that means is the twist will spring a leak into their shoulders, neck, and waist, which even in a tight person, all of those areas will move more than in a the rib cage. Okay. The Shri approach to twists is that we actually protect the neck, the waist, the hip joints, the low back and pelvis. We protect and nourish and nurture those areas and kind of really reel it in, contain you in such a way that you're not overemphasizing movement in these already easy to move regions. And we are bringing the twist focal point into the region of your heart, the space between your shoulder blades, your sternum, the place between the breast region, your rib cage, your spine through the rib cage, your thoracic spine. What this often means is that you don't move as far in a spinal twist because you're not going into the periphery of the body, because you're not following the path of least resistance, because we are targeting areas that are tight, compressed, locked down. In Sanskrit, this region is called a granthi, which means a knot, K-N-O-T in English, a knot. Okay, we are reaching into a knotted up, blocked, tight region. Okay, because of that, you will look like you're going less far, but what's happening is you're actually going deeper in and having the influence on the physical and subtle realms that yoga is really designed for. Now, let's see how a lot of people twist, okay, in yoga land. Maybe it's because it's more photogenic. Maybe it's because of the influence of dance on asana and modern yoga land, but you will see straight arms. Okay, and then what's facilitating the twist? The spine is facilitating the twist. You can go ahead and try this. Have straight arms and twist your spine. Or people do this. Now, if I do this, see what's twisting. My waist is twisting. Okay, if I do this, my whole spine is tightening, and that's not a spinal twist, that's a spinal tightener. Now, what happens if I bend my elbows and I use my arms to facilitate a twist? What will happen is I'm going to get a twist through the rib cage. That's the region of the heart. So here, watch. Twist through the rib cage. Let's see what happens when my arms are straight. Well, I actually can't twist. The only twist that happens is whatever happens when I do this, and that's as far as it goes. Now, what we'll see, what I notice in videos and photo shoots of people making shapes with their bodies is an over-exaggeration of the movement of areas that already move easily. So let me show you what that looks like. What are the areas that move easily? Shoulders, neck, and waist. Rib cage will stay tight like a barrel. And so here's what happens. So I'm twisting through the neck. Hopefully you can see that. And there's lift off here. I'm exaggerating so you can see it in my body. And the twist is actually in the waist and neck. But the rib cage will move more like a barrel. It's going along for the ride, but internally not much is happening in the rib cage. And I'm going to show you another example with a recline twist, which is practiced so commonly. Okay. Oh, but just to go back to this, you can see, oh, I'm going so far. I'll show you the front view as well. Okay. If the goal of a person is to go farther, then what will happen is it will influence the periphery of the body, but it's not deeply inwards. So here's me going far into a twist. Okay. And what's really happening is movement through the waist and the neck. Now, if I just keep it to the rib cage, I won't go as far. It's not going to be maybe as photogenic. It's not going to look like much is happening because rib cages are designed to protect your heart and your lungs. So they're never going to move. The rib cage is never going to move as much as your waist. Okay. So now I'm not going as far. It's not very dramatic. Okay. But I'm getting a twist here. Now, let me show you one more thing. If I right now I'm going as far as I can. If I untwist my neck so that I'm not giving any movement in that path of least resistance, I'm going to be able to twist my ribs more. Watch this. Even more when I don't involve the neck. So over twisting or over moving those easy to move areas, what it does is it actually further tightens the more restricted areas.